Well, the stage play is the absolute worst version of Under Milk Wood that I've ever seen. I've seen it quite often, because the whole point of the radio version is, at that time, everyone could imagine the landscape and the background. And I think people grow out of a place.
Yes.
They grow out of that sea village. It never works on stage. There's no background. There's no place. So the film is, at the beginning, the film was second best to the radio version.
Okay.
But by the time the people who first heard it are now your grandmothers, and the coastline of Wales has totally changed. It's more of a caravan park or gentrified coastal cottages.
Yeah.
So the film is the best memory you'll ever have of what it was like then. And people grow out of the landscape. You cannot imagine that landscape anymore. It doesn't exist.
And kind of building on that, I noticed there were some absolutely beautiful shots of Fishguard in particular in the film. When choosing a location for the film, what was it that drew you to Fishguard?
I went around the whole coastline of Wales for 2 weeks. Fishguard was the only place which existed in that time, hadn't been changed, the people were the same, and had been the same for 100 years. It was the last little sea village left in the whole of Wales. Also, the people, they were unchanged, as though they'd stuck in a time warp since 1950, almost for 100 years. That's why the children are so natural and such wonderful actors, because they grew up in that place and they were as they had been when Dylan knew them 40 years before. Well, O'Toole is a genius and a meteor. He was also very friendly with me, and he knew me fairly well. And the thing about O'Toole, he's a highly intelligent man, highly intelligent too. And he actually did the most difficult things. He blinded himself by putting soup plates in his eyes. And as a result, thank goodness, he couldn't drink, because otherwise he would have gone blind. Now, Burton, of course, was not quite like that. But Burton I had one thing on Burton. I'd been a Don at Cambridge, and he'd always wanted to be a Don at Oxford, or pretended he wanted it. Also highly intelligent, actually, too. But he loved me, which nobody else did at all, because I was an intellectual, and I'd been a Don. That's what he'd always wanted to be. And that's why Miss Taylor hated me. Firstly, she was foisted on me. I didn't want her on the film at all, but they insisted to get a larger share of the tax breaks they were going to get on the film, their agents. But she was absolutely against anyone who was pandered to Richard's taste of wanting to be an intellectual. She is not bright. She is a holy cow. And, you know, she really is a pretty awful woman. And the other thing, of course, as I knew perfectly well, she knew perfectly well I didn't fancy her, and that's hopeless with a woman's stuff. Absolutely hopeless.
Did you have someone?
No. This is instinct. Oh, come on, every woman knows if you fancy them or not. And I thought she looked awful. I mean, in the bed scene, I'll tell you something. Firstly, she was about 3 hours late, and it was a 2 days shoot, so I thought we'd never complete the picture. But in the bed scene, when she lay back on the bed, she had 3 chins. And we had to have a wonderful cameraman, called Bob Hugh, and he produced something, Brute Lights, old Mitchell cameras. He produced a black ruler and danced up and down while we were shooting. I said, "Watch that afterwards, Bob." He said, "It's called Charlie Bar." Why is it called a Charlie Bar? Any Charlie can use it. When the takes came out, no chins. It cast a shadow over her 3 chins, and she looked as beautiful as always. Everywhere I go, I've never met anyone really who doesn't know a poem of Dylan Thomas. He wrote a dozen poems which will always be there. Even on the graves in Wales I see it, "And death shall have no dominion," or "Do not go gentle into that good night." And Fern Hill, the Prince of Wales declaims Fern Hill on Poetry Day, you know. He is the greatest bard Wales has had for 500 years.
Bring to life the bubbling, bursting, vivid vitality of real people the whole world over.
Will you take this woman to be your awful wedded wife?
The warm-hearted humour.
That's where you threw the sago.
The longing. The loving. The fun. The fear. And the frustration.
Come and get me, Mr. Brannybody.
With Anne Price and her deliriously devoted Mr. Mogg Edwards.
Says you're arsenic, dear. And you a wee killer biscuit. I've throttled your parakeet.
The murderous Mr. Pugh, the infuriating Mrs. Pugh.
Polly Garter. She was martyred again last night.
The much-loved Polly Garter.
We must take our pajamas from the drawer-marked pajamas.
And then you must take them off.
Mrs. Ogmore Pritchard, No Good Boyle. Organ Morgan, Butcher Bynum.
I don't care if he is common.
Gossamer Bynum.
I want to gobble him all up.
Sinbad Sailors.
I wish that you were not so educated.
And many, many more lovable, laughable, utterly unforgettable characters. Dylan Thomas's Under Milkwood.